All right. Shalom, shalom. I like to start off by saying, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Kol Haloim La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ochakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect that's scattered abroad. The Akim and the Akwat that's listening in. Yahweh Ratazah, Lord willing, that the lesson is edifying. It's the brother Shawab Amwan back at you with another lesson. And what I want to go into, going by the title, sometimes it doesn't work out in our favor. All right. And took me a little bit to really think about if I wanted to do this video or not, because, it's more something I have to deal with on my own, but it's just too much on my mind. And I just feel like I have to speak on it through the spirit. And I really don't even know where to start, really, but I'm just gonna flow through the spirit, roll in the spirit. But yeah. So first things first, let me just grab the scripture. This is what comes to my mind first. This is Micah 7:9. It says, "I will bear the indignation of the Lord Yahweh, because I have sinned against him, until he plead my cause and execute judgment for me. He will bring me forth to the light, and I shall behold his righteousness." All right. And basically Sunday, I believe it was Sunday, yeah. Unfortunately, my son had passed away. And, this is why I need, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, I just need brothers and sisters to pray for me and my wife, because there's a lot on our mind right now. It's a lot of, it's just plaguing us at the end of the day. We have 100% faith in Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, and we know that Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai's judgment is righteous, and we can never get upset of those things, because, the Lord works in mysterious ways, but it's just something that's bothering us very much, because, we'll sit here as being in the flesh, you're going to think about why. You have to examine the situation, so unfortunately, it didn't work out in our favor. We could sit here and blame this, blame that, try to figure out and backtrack why, but all these things happen because Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai wants it to happen at the end of the day. There was a lot of demon time going on when that happened, because it just came sudden. We went through it last week about happened on a Sunday. Yeah, basically it was basically 7 days. And we went to the hospital, and she was having a early labor, premature labor, and I asked brothers to throw up prayers, and those prayers, the water brothers, the water sisters, for those prayers, they helped very much. But it ended up working out for us in our favor. Everything stopped. I strongly believe that this happened because what these devils gave my wife while she was in the hospital. We left it in the Lord's hands. I asked for counsel. What should I do? We tried as hard as we could, to, just leave it in Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai's hands. And, we prayed over it. What should we really do? And again, it just didn't work out in our favor, because for whatever reason it is, could have been things that were said, could have been things that we've done in our past lives, in this life. We have to understand that, the things we want the most, sometimes most likely they're gonna be taken away from you in this lifetime, man, because we have to suffer in this truth, and again, we left it in the Lord's hands, and it was on my spirit to just let the doctors deal with it to the best of their ability, and hoping that Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai will perform through their hands. You know what I'm saying? And then they did, but at the same time, you can't trust your enemy, you know. And the only reason we ended up taking, like, she ended up taking a magnesium. She ended up taking two steroids that was supposedly going to help, with the lungs and all that. And again, we was really strictly not wanting to do that. You know what I'm saying? But because how it all happened and happened so quick, it was a very big possible chance that even though she stopped laboring, that maybe the next day or later on that night or 2 days from then, she was going to go into labor again because she was already dilated, you know. But I kind of learned my lesson. We learned our lesson, because here it is. The doctors was just saying all types of nonsense, telling me that right now the baby's the size of my hand, the palm of my hand, saying that, when if the baby was to come out, it it was gonna be uh it was gonna be see through, because the body hasn't fully formed, which it kind of made sense, you know what I'm saying? But here it is, when the baby came out and we lost the baby, I tell you, man, that baby was. This is how these doctors lie to us, man. They just fucking lie to us on another level, and this is why they can't be trusted. When the baby came out, it was it was about, I deal with rulers all day and carpentry and all that. So it was literally over a foot. It was about almost a foot and a half, the baby. So you're talking about this big, you know. It was in the sack, when the baby did come out, it was not even see-through. It was a perfectly early but full baby, so they lied to us, because now that we think about it more and more, they just really wanted to get that medication in her body, and I strongly believe, and she believes, that they poisoned that baby to come out even earlier. And that's why the last doctor that we dealt with, we was dealing with so many fucking demons, last week with all these different doctors, and they kept trying to push this so much, and we just kept saying no, 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 but eventually how to pray on it and leave it in the Lord's hands, because just in case the Lord was working through them, he was giving me the sign, like, he might need this, just in case he does come back out, but I come to find out that it was just a whole lie. I believe that those were, whatever was injected into her was made to make the baby come out anyway, because the last words that the doctor said when he was pissed off at half of the shit we said to him, you know, talking about Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, and letting them know that we roll with the Lord, not in science. He said what's going to happen is that you're going to come back and your baby's going to die and your baby's going to be dead. And it worked out just like that. And that now that I'm thinking of it more, I had a couple days to think about it. It definitely is because the stuff that they put in her, you know. But it was a shit show. It was literally a shit, and I don't mean to ramble, Salakia, just in my thoughts right now, you know. But hopefully it's edification and it's something we can learn from, you know. But there was a lot of demon time happening that day, because when it happened, it was about 7:30 at night, 8 o'clock at night. And the first demon time was her brother. I couldn't bring her daughter with us because the last time we brought her daughter, they gave a whole entire problem, and didn't want to let her upstairs, and they wanted her to stay downstairs, all this extra shit that didn't need to be done. And she has a disability and everything. So, you know, we called her brother, which her brother lives literally the unit over from our unit, a couple units over. And because I had so much stuff in my car, I didn't have time to really go walk her over there or anything like that. It was just no time because she started going into bleeding again when she went to use the bathroom and kind of went through contractions again. And he didn't want to come over. He was telling me to drop her off. Like I ain't even had no fucking time for that. You know what I'm saying? Literally. And it was just demon time already started with her, with him. And I tell you, about 15 minutes were wasted. I also had called my mom to get here, so I didn't leave her daughter there by herself in the house. I should have just brought her with me and figured it out later, but everything was in the heat of the moment. But whatever. My mom finally got here, and then we ended up, wasting another 10 minutes trying to get my woman into the car because she was already bleeding and she was literally dilating. I can see the membranes coming out when she was laying on the couch. So it took us a little bit to get into the car. And then what really killed us was we had to drive about 15 minutes to get to the hospital because the hospital that's next to us is horrible. They're not fit for having babies or none of that. So we had no choice but to really drive that way. And the ambulances were not going to drive her from here to the other town, which was towns over. They were going to drive her directly here because it's an emergency. But what really killed us was that what there was a lot of demon time was when we got to the hospital. She still hadn't pushed the baby out. The baby was still inside. She was just dilated and it was coming out. And what ended up happening was that there was a fucking lady, a demon ass lady, Edomite bitch, that just literally, in the midst of us saying there's an emergency, she's having premature labor, it's about to happen and drop out. She literally took about 15 to 20 minutes, I mean, of precious time, of precious moments that we needed, precious time we needed, you know, and she basically, she delayed everything and she wanted to search us. She wanted to check us in, ID us, all this extra shit. And I'm like arguing with this fucking lady, telling her like that is not important right now. She needs to get put in a stretcher and taken upstairs. This is like literally about to drop out. But she was giving me an attitude. She didn't like how I was talking to her. And she was prolonging it. And then she prolonged it on purpose. I know that for a fact. You know what I'm saying? So with those precious minutes that were wasted, those 20 minutes, something could have helped and worked in our favor to the point where she could have been taken where she needed to be. Because if this baby was coming out in premature labor, the moment it came out, it had to be, put into an incubator and dealt with right then and there. But, it was a shit show. You had the security guards was trying to, calm us down and search us. And I'm like, man, I was ready to start just swinging on everybody because it just didn't make no sense. It's emergency. But when they finally got the stretcher, 20 minutes later, okay, as soon as she laid down on the bed, the baby popped out, blood everywhere. Baby landed right on the bed, and now instead of being where we needed to be, in the right side of the hospital where all the stuff is for, for this type of situation, we ended up delivering the baby in a fucking little ass waiting room that just they had bags. They had to call people in with just tools in their bags and all this bullshit. It didn't make no fucking sense. And then what I didn't like was that there was about 30 people surrounding us, yo. I mean, doctors and nurses, yo. It just, oh man, the more I think about it, more and more, it just pisses me off, you know. But they were just standing there like it was fucking an entertainment to them, not making no moves, just staring and looking at us. Even in the lobby when we first walked in and I said it was an emergency, I said, why are you just standing there? Like, hello, it's an emergency. Let's go. And that's when the whole thing started with me arguing with the lady in the front, you know. And same thing when she was already had delivered it out and she's bleeding all over the floor. I mean, all over the bed. They're literally just looking at us, and all these people are just watching like it's an entertainment. I can understand about 10 doctors in there and nurses, whatever. About 10 people total should have been in there. The ones that needed to do and perform what they needed to perform. But there was literally like I can count literally about 30 people, and I even cursed them out like, why the fuck are y'all looking at us? Like, why are y'all all standing there like this is entertainment? You know, but with all that doing, it's more like a tactic, man, just to scare you and to make you agree to whatever they wanted you to agree to. They wanted to give her this, they wanted to give her that, and I'm telling them, no, no more of that, no more of that. Your job is to take the baby and resuscitate it. And they cut open the sack which they shouldn't have, because right before my woman let go of that baby was still moving. It was still moving. She felt them. She definitely felt them. And I kept asking her in the car on the drive there, is he moving? Can you feel him? She's like, yes. But all of a sudden, when they took the sack, they cut it open, they cut the umbilical cord, which they weren't. I already had demanded them in a certain specific way to deal things, and they went totally against what I said, you know. And then here it is, they took them and they were trying to resuscitate them, and they were trying to resuscitate them for about 15, 20 minutes, and it just didn't work out on our favor, and they said the more we resuscitate them, the more problems is going to be to the brain and all this. And it was just annoying because I'm on the other side of the room and there's all these doctors in front of my way, and I'm trying to get to my son to see what they're doing to my son, and I couldn't, you know. And then at the same time, me trying to make sure that my woman is okay because she was losing so much blood, so I didn't know if it was something that she was going through that could have harmed her, possibly put her down and she lose her life, so it was just a juggle between both of them, and again, it just didn't work out in our favor. And he ended up passing away. And then, we went upstairs finally to the other side where we needed to go once he pretty much was gone, and, we took him upstairs in the room and we held him for, an extra 2 hours, on our own. And, I prayed to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, understanding that, hey, man, if it's something I did, something that I did wicked in your eyes that I have to pay for, I understand. Same thing with my wife. She said the same thing. And at one point I was even trying to, ask Yahweh Bashim Yahushua to bring a miracle, wake this baby up, even though they saying he's gone, which he never looked like he was gone in our hands while we held him for them 2 hours. He never turned white, never turned cold, nothing. He didn't look like he was dead. He just looked like he was, sleeping comfortably and peacefully, you know, and looking healthy. Just didn't have a heartbeat, apparently, and I just asked the Lord, show me a miracle, if it be your will, and if it's meant to be, because through the scriptures, the Lord had, risen people up from the dead. So there ain't nothing for the Lord to, snap his finger and bring them back to life, calling on his name. And, I was asking him to basically wake him up if he could, show these damn doctors a miracle, show them that you're the true power, but unfortunately it didn't work out, and we had to, come to terms with it. And then what was crazy was that I didn't want the baby to be taken from us, because we know what these devils do behind closed doors with these babies, with dead bodies, period. They be wanting pieces of the brain, they be wanting, whatever it is for their rituals. And it was just bothering us because something kept telling me in my spirit, don't let that baby get out your sight, because they about to do some wicked shit to it, And I tried to ask them basically if I can take them out, but policy policy wouldn't allow me to take them out and take them with me. They wanted to know what type of religion I was, and depending on the religion, and we could have took them for a burial, but we don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Because the way burials are done in these days, that's not the proper way. to do them. You're not supposed to be putting babies in the, I mean, you're not supposed to be putting anybody that dies in caskets and, doing all this extra shit that they want them to do. Esau just wants to make money off of you. That's it. When a person dies, to the dust it returns, to the ground he returns. That's it. You're supposed to bury them in the ground and let basically the worms eat them up. You know what I'm saying? And, the spirit goes back to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah anyway, and it's just a body that doesn't have the spirit in it, but still I wanted it to be done in my manner, knowing that nobody took my son and used him in any ill manner way, but again, it just didn't work out in that favor. They wouldn't let us out, so we had to come to terms with it. And, I pretty much threw curses up that if anybody did anything to my son's body that they weren't supposed to, may Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai bring pestilences, evils, death upon their families, and everybody that was there that had involvement in that, since day one, I threw curses up on, but again, it didn't work out in our favor, and it's very hard on the brain, it's very hard on our mental, you know, and as we just had days to think of, we just trying to examine ourselves, and trying to think about why did it come out the way it happened, and again, it could have been something that I did in my past life or this life, and I had to pay for it, something that the mother, my wife did and has to pay for it. Um, or it's just, what? The Lord took him away, which I strongly believe, Yahweh Bashim Yahushua took him away because of the times we're about to enter into. We're about to enter into some heavy, heavy, heavy times. And it might have been that, what, I'm right now I'm still jobless, been jobless for about 2.5 years, haven't had no luck with that, so right now my wife is holding it down, and it could be because the times we're entering, we're not going to be able to afford it as much, or because of the famine that's coming upon this place, he might not be able to, get the things he needs, even though Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai is going to let his servants eat and drink, he's still a baby at the end of the day that requires much more than what he needs, So I believe through the spirit, very much that the Lord took him away because of the times that is to come, and it was also a test of our faith to see if we will continue, because a lot of people, they'll go through this and they're going to be plagued in their mind on a whole nother level, and lose faith, and we kept the faith. We kept asking Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah to keep us strong. We understand, what it is, but at the same time, I just lost somebody, so it is going to plague our mind a little bit and bother us, and that's why I just ask for brothers to throw prayers up so I can stay strong, which, still continuing in the faith, still, the last 2 days I haven't pushed out videos like I've been pushing them, but I was managed to push out, videos anyway. And, showing my faith that I believe in Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah. I'm still here with you, still believing 100%, you know, and, I'm going to continue all the way to the end regardless, because as the scriptures tell you, as a matter of fact, let me just grab that because I've just been rambling on. Salakia. All right, we have to endure these things, man. These are sufferings we have to endure, okay? And if it was for something that I did, I have to bear the indignation of the Lord, like I just read in the beginning, all right? Because I sinned upon my power, so judgments come, but this is Romans 8 and 35, and it says, who shall separate us from the love of Hamashiach? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? As it is written, for thy sake we are killed all the day long. We are counted as sheep for the slaughter. Nay, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. For I'm persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things to come, present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, or any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of Hamashiach, All right. So we're not to be separated. None of these things are to make us separate from Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. We have to continue to endure because at the end of the day, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai knows what's good for us, even in his judgments. You know, he's not wrong in any of his judgments that he does. You see, what comes to us is well deserved, you know, because we have been wicked, you know, in our past lives and this life. And, you know, these are sufferings we go through, all right, because the time to come, the Lord is going to prevent you from suffering like these damn two-thirds, you see. So it might be very well that, you know, in exchange for my son's life, you know, is gonna be given to us with what? With salvation, you know. We have to think like that. We have to make, even in the most negative situations, we have to turn them into positive situations, believing in Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, and that his judgment is righteous, you know. And I strongly believe that, you know. I definitely believe that it was something that I had to pay for, my wife also, but at the same time, also knowing that Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai might have done it so because of the times we're going into, we might not be able to he might not be able to survive. And it's weird because even before my wife, you know, when we first found out she was pregnant, you know, that was something I had to instill in her mind to begin with. You know, I told her this is not a good time to have a child. You know, scriptures say, woe to them that have children of suck in those days, you know, and that's really for the two-thirds because these people have unlawful beds, you know, and they out there just living life like there's nothing wrong in the world, you know. But you know, we might have to very much go through something like that. And because this is something that me and my wife, we didn't plan it, it just came about. But when we found out that she was pregnant, you know, we wanted to make sure that this is something we wanted, you know what I'm saying? Not that we was thinking about anything else. We was gonna accept it the way it came anyway, but just letting her know that, listen, this is something that we want, and it tends to be that when we're in this truth, things that we want the most are taken away from us to suffer, you know what I'm saying? And look, it ended up happening anyway, you know. So these things we go through, we suffer now so we can be saved later, you know, and not suffer like these two-thirds do. This is why we have to suffer with the children of Israel, you know, instead of, you know, living in pleasures of sin. You know, these people live in pleasures of sin, and because they want to live in pleasure and sin now, not suffer the afflictions with the children of Israel. All right, this is why these two-thirds are going to catch a horrible death. All right. But us that have been suffering this whole time through losing jobs, through being homeless, through the mental states that we're put, through the oppression we're constantly being put through in our minds, the way Satan is always attacking us in our minds and trying to make us go off. You know, we're going through these things to really to be built, you know, for the times to come. And you know, when that time does come, we're not judged like these two-thirds, you know. Instead, the Lord's gonna have that precious salvation waiting for us, you know. And I know that my son is gonna he up there right now in, you know, in the spirit world. And when that time comes, Lord willing, we make the kingdom, you know, he's gonna rule over these nations. You know what I'm saying? He's gonna rule over every single one of these that were trying to take him out the way, you know. And they were definitely trying to take him out the way. My son been going through in the womb, he was already going through so much tribulation without even being born, you know. Me and my wife, since we got together, we have gone through nothing but hell, like nothing but hell coming into this word. Well, especially her. She's been in the truth 2 years. You know, she's been catching pure hell. I've been in this truth almost 6 years. You know, I've been catching pure hell because that's what we go through in this truth. When you come to serve the Lord, you're going to prepare your soul for temptation, man. You're going to go through hardships and sufferings. All right. That's something that, let me grab something. Sufferings for Yahweh Shai's sake, man. All right. Yahushua suffered for us to be able to receive this word, receive the comforter, you know, and none of us are going to be able to conquer the way Yahushua did. Absolutely not. Because Yahushua is the man, you know what I'm saying? he was the only one that could go through that suffering, you know. So, but us being in his truth, we have to suffer just like he did to receive the prize. You see, he had to suffer to be on the right hand of Yahweh and being able to, you know, come back and have all these nations under subjection, you know, and to be able to instill the righteousness upon the earth, you know. So for us, you know, as the scriptures say, through much tribulation, thou shalt enter into the kingdom. You know, in order for us to gain the kingdom, we have to go through so much suffering on this side, you know, and these are examples, you see. You know, of course I wanted my son to make it, and you know, I had the faith that he was gonna be one of those untimely children that gonna make it and be beamed up, you know, but you got to think about how Satan tries to break us down also, you know, how we're tested in our faith with every unfortunate situation, because look what happened with Job. You know, Job was tested on a heavy note, and that's one of the things I thought about the most. You know, Job, you had Satan begging Yahweh, you know, even in this situation, I feel like Satan was just begging Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah to take away something that I really wanted, you know, and he did. And it's all to try to make you curse the Lord, to make you fall away and never think of this truth again. But I'm still here. I'm still here, strong, believing 100%, you know, like I've always done. And I've been through a lot of shit, you know, and none of that shit has breaking me, you know, has brought me low. It has brought me low, but it hasn't broke me in my faith ever. You know, I mean, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah continue to be with me in my faith and keep me strong in my faith. You know, and like I said, this is why I need prayers right now, just to keep my mind sane. You know what I'm saying? Because this one definitely hurt a lot. You know, but again, I'm gonna still continue to push through the word, and because I believe 100%. You know, and I know and I understand that hey, death is just it's just you sleeping, you know, and it explains why my son looked like he was just sleeping. You know, the spirit was taken away from him long before they tried to do the resuscitation and all that, you know, and he's going to be one that rules in that kingdom, you know, and he's going to have he's going to have all these people under subjection, you know. As a matter of fact, a beautiful picture that I took that, you know, the brother Manat Zakba out there in the San Francisco camp, he's always doing a lot of videos, you know, with a visual. You know, one of the pictures I had to screenshot, one of the videos I screenshotted. Give me 1 second. And it just brought a lot of hope to me just seeing that, because that's exactly what the Lord got in store for us. You know, give me 1 second. Let me just bring it up. Is this one right here. Okay. This is, I don't know if y'all can see it, but this is a little one, you know, with a crown on him, having these heathens into subjection. You know, that's what's coming. If I am one of the elect, you know, we're gonna bring back all those we lost, you know, through the loins of the elect. And I strongly believe he'll be one of the first ones that's gonna be brought back, all right, and he's gonna be able to enjoy the kingdom. You know what I'm saying? Remember, the Lord said he get blessed a hundredfold for forsaken houses, KJV. This is Matthew 19 and 29, and it says, and everyone, excuse me, I'll take it from 27. It says, then answered Peter and said unto him, behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have? What shall we have therefore? And Yahushua said unto them, verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, we also, give me a second. Ye shall sit in the throne of his glory. Ye also shall sit upon 12. Give me a second. Ye shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And everyone that has forsaken houses, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold, and shall inherit everlasting life. You know, so everything we lose on this side, it's gonna be given to us 100-fold. We're gonna receive it and more. You know, I'm just trying to stay strong. This is why I had to get this video out, because it's just been killing me in my mind. Give me a second. All right. So, everything we lose on this side, at the end of the day, we're going to get it back, you know. And even though it hurts, we have to keep that faith, all the way to the end, you know. So, you know, let me grab this back to where I was. And going into these suffering scriptures. Let me grab. I'll grab this one. This is Psalms 55 and 22. Cast thy burdens upon the Lord Yahweh, and he shall sustain thee. He shall never suffer the righteous to be moved. All right. These are burdens upon me. They're heavy things that are heavy on my mind, man. And all we could do is just ask the Lord to sustain us in this times that, these hardships that we go through, in hopes that, the Lord have mercy on us. It says, give me 1 second. I had one I had in my mind earlier. It's just my mind been everywhere. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Let's grab this one. This is Second Corinthians. No, it's Second Corinthians. Yeah, 1 Corinthians 10 and 13. It says, "There has no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man." All right. These are things that happen every day. You know, and the Lord puts us through these things because He knows that we're able to handle them. At the end of the day, He's not gonna make you go through something that you're not able to handle. All right. It says, "There has no temptation taken you, but such is common to man." And let me go into that word temptation in the interlinear. In the interlinear, that word temptation goes into parasmos. Parasmos. Parasmas. It says an experiment, it can very be well an experiment, that the Lord's testing you in to see what you're going to do, to see if you're going to fall away, see if you're going to stop calling on Him, but we must endure to the end, because the ones that endure are the ones that are going to be saved, right? It's an attempt, okay? It's an attempt to try to break you down, because Satan is always constantly sifting us by inward agitation. This is more than an inward agitation. When I seen all these demons just constantly trying to fuck with us, these doctors and all of them, man, they just kept trying so hard to just break us down in the mind, and we kept trying to we kept being so strong. You know what I'm saying? And they see that we're strong people. And that's why I believe the Lord allowed this to happen, because He knows that we're strong. Me and my wife. Dude, the shit we've been going through for the past 2 years. And then on top of that, before I met my wife, I've been going through a whole bunch of crazy shit. The Lord knows I can handle them. and I'm thankful that I'm able to be strong like that. It says trial, proving. We're being, we go through these trials and tribulations to prove to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai that we are able to, conquer these things. That's why I just said in Romans 8, we're more than conquerors, you know, because our bodies is already, we're already just as good as dead if we don't turn to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai and endure these sufferings, man. You know, it says trial, proving the trial made of you by my bodily condition, since conditions served as to test the love of the Galatians toward Paul. All right. Uh, it says, the trial of man's fidelity, integrity, virtue, constancy. Okay. Which it could also be, actual temptation through enticement of sin, things that we know we're not supposed to be doing. We get tested in these things also, to see if you will go back to those sins, go back to your old ways, go back to your old man, the old deeds that you're not supposed to be dealing with no more. You're supposed to what? Put on the old man. All right. I mean, so like you're supposed to put on the new man and throw away the old deeds, the old man, because you are now in the renewing of your mind. You know, it says temptation, whether arising from the desires or from the outward circumstances. It says an eternal temptation to sin, all right, of the temptation by which the devil sought to divert Yahushua, the Messiah, from his divine errand. You see, where Satan always trying to strip us, trying to make us take our crown away. He's trying to take that crown away from us. Look at what he did to Yahushua in Matthew the fourth chapter. He was basically trying to give him everything, and tell him, get in his head to basically break his faith toward Yahweh, but he told him thou shalt not tempt the Lord. He told him that the angels were going to be there to always push him through. He even offered him all the empires, basically, just like Esau tried to make you sell your soul today, and tell you, give you all the finer things of life, but we're not supposed to take those, man, because we have Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai on our side, one, and what is about to be offered onto us in the kingdom is far more than anything in this world can ever offer us. It says of the condition of things or a mental state. That's what really got me heavy right now, the mental state. The Lord will put us in a certain mental state just to see what you're going to do in that mental state, and that's when Satan comes and tries to pick your brain with a lot of inward agitation by trying to sift you. Okay. And like I said, I strongly believe that Shaitan was definitely begging, Yahweh to come in and try to get me with this one right here, with my son, because in my past, before I came into this truth, man, I have a daughter already. She's 16, and she knows the truth, but she lives with her mom, so I can't fully be around her to teach her how she's supposed to, you know what I'm saying. And her mom is a lenient person, so it makes her go off a lot sometimes, and I'm always on top of my daughter and yelling at her, but she just thinks I'm the zing guy. It is what it is, though. But may Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai have mercy upon her. And I've told her a million times, man, you don't do what you're supposed to do, the Lord take your ass out. Take your ass out, and yeah, I'm gonna cry, but I'm gonna understand it, because it's judgment. You have to work out your own salvation like anybody else, you know. But he tried to. I feel like with this one, because me and my wife were both in the truth. You know what I'm saying? And that was a special one being born. He definitely just begged the Lord to take him out. And as a matter of fact, now that I'm saying that, let me just grab that. This is what Satan does to us, man. All right. Showing you how he'll try to sift someone. This is Job get straight to the point. Mm. This is Job 1 and yeah, straight to the point. In the beginning, he was basically you had Satan that was begging. All right. Matter of fact, let me just read this first chapter in Job. It says there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared Yahweh and eschewed evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance was also 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels and 500 yoke of oxen and 500 she asses in a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the east. See, so Job had everything, man. Beautiful children. He had a wife. He had, substance with lands. He had many sheep and I mean many sheep. He had basically land full of animals, man. All right, and that's what true rulership is, man. It's not about having all this money, man. It's about having things like this, owning land and having, food to basically have to eat. Okay. He had all of that, you know. That's the true finer things of life that Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah gives you, you know. It says, and his sons went and feasted in their houses, every one his day, and sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and to drink with them. And it was so, when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them and rose up early in the morning and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed Yahweh in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. Now there was a day when the sons of Yahweh came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. You see, when we come to present ourselves to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, just Satan is always there, man. You see, trying to make us go the opposite way. He's there presenting himself also because he is a son of Yahweh, but just on the left hand side. You see, it says, and the Lord Yahweh said unto Satan, whence comest thou? Then Satan answered, and the Lord answered the Lord Yahweh and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from waking up and down in it. And the Lord Yahweh said unto Satan, hast thou considered my soul? See, so here goes Yahweh, all right, telling him, have thou considered my soul, my servant Job? All right. This is how you know that it is of Yahweh, man. All right. Yahweh is what controls, okay, Satan. There's no battle between Yahweh and Satan. Okay, they're trying to figure out who's gonna have power over. Nah. This is Yahweh that makes us go through these things to test us in our faith. Okay, because he asked Satan, have you considered my servant Job? Right? And there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth Yahweh and escheweth evil. Then Satan answered the Lord Yahweh and said, does Job fear Yahweh for naught? Has not thou made a hedge about him and about his house and about all that he has on every side? Yeah, the Lord always kept a certain protection hedge around them, right? And it says, thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. And see, this is why, you have to prepare for those. When you have too much, you can never get comfortable in this truth, man. When you having things given to you, too many blessings given to you, that's actually scary, you know, because you're not being chastised. There's no such thing as a man never sinned. We all have sinned before Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, man. You know, that so by us, sinning, we have to go through a trial. The ones that don't go through a trial, it's these 2/3, man. Me and my wife was talking about that. We was upset, like, man, she was more upset of like, damn, these fucking evil people get everything they want, and that's a healthy thing, because the Lord will put the spirit on you to hate this place, man. to really hate this place, because that's what you see. You see the wicked prospering, you know, the people that should be taken out of the freaking way, man. They just prospering over everything while we sit here and suffer. But the Lord said not to be envious against them, man. All right, because we have a beautiful reward coming to us. This is why we're suffering on this side, man. You know, and that's why the Lord is allowing them to get everything, because this is their world. The earth is given to the hand of the wicked, which we know that's Esau. But even for these wicked ass 2/3, man, they're given everything, man, and they get away with it, you know. And it's because judgment is not executed speedily, as it tells you in Ecclesiastes, the 8th chapter. Okay, but it's gonna go well with those that suffer in this truth and believe in Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai at the end. Okay, because all the sufferings we went through on this side is gonna give us that great reward, Lord willing. We are of that number, you know. So it says, but put forth thine hand now and touch all that he has, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, behold, all that he has is in thy power, only upon himself put not forth thine hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord Yahweh. And there was a day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And there came a messenger unto Job and said, the oxen were plowing, and the asses feeding besides them, and the Sabians fell upon them and took them away. Yeah, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped, only to tell thee. All right. So his first thing that was taken was what? Was taking his cattle. All right. Everything that, you know, his animals. All right. That's your food right there. You know what I'm saying? It says, while he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the fire of Yahweh is fallen from heaven and has burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the Chaldeans made out 3 bands and fell upon the camels and have carried them away, yea, and the slain servants with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped only to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in the eldest brother's house, and behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead, and I only am escaped only alone to tell thee. Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell upon the ground and worshipped and said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord Yahweh gave, and the Lord Yahweh has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord Yahweh. You see? So as much as the Lord gives us blessings for us being in his truth, he's going to take away things that we really want the most, things that we have, you know, and it's a test of your faith. So if you just constantly getting blessed, man, and you're not going through no hell, that's not good. Because a man that has no chastisement is considered a what? A bastard, you know? So this is all test of your faith. Okay. It says, and in all this Job sinned not, nor charged Yahweh foolishly, right? And I'll read a little bit here. And it says, again, there was a day when the sons of Yahweh came to present themselves before the Lord Yahweh, and Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord Yahweh. And the Lord Yahweh said unto Satan, from whence thou comest? And Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord Yahweh said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job? There is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth Yahweh and escheweth evil. And still he holdeth fast his integrity, although thou moved me against him to destroy him without cause. See, and that's Satan begging him, you know, let me get some more. Let me take some stuff out of him. You know, that's why when we suffer in this truth, the sufferings get harder and harder, man. You know, because Satan is literally trying to break you down, all right, and make you turn against the Lord. but you have to have that integrity, and you have to keep that integrity, right? You have to keep fighting through through the sufferings, right? It says, and Satan answered in the Lord Yahweh, and said, skin for skin, yeah, all that a man has will he give for his life. But put forth thine hand now, and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord Yahweh said unto Satan, behold, he is in thine hand, but save his life. So went Satan forth from the presence of the Lord Yahweh, and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot unto his crown. And he took him a potsherd to scrape himself withal, and he sat down among the ashes. Then said his wife unto him, do thou still retain thine integrity? Curse Yahweh and die. But he said unto her, thou speakest as one of a foolish woman speaketh. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of Yahweh, and shall not receive evil? And all this did not Job sin with his lips. You see? So he was just going through all types of things, man. And it was all to try to make him fall away, and to make him curse Yahweh by Shem Yahweh Shai, you know, and I can feel it. That's what this devil, that's what Satan basically trying to do to me, you know, which is all sent from on high, you know, to test us in our faith, you know, but no way, you know, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah is the true power, and his judgments are righteous. All right. And all we could do is continue to keep pushing, you know, in hopes that we get the hell up out of here, you know, and are able to receive that kingdom that's coming, you know. So going back to when I was bringing out the scripture in First Corinthians 10 and 13, there has no temptation taking you, but such is common to man. But Yahweh is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it. You know, the things that we go through, all right, he's not going to give you more than what you can handle at the end of the day, man. All right. We can handle these things, and they can hurt very much sometimes, but the Lord has chosen us to be those warriors, man, to be able to handle these things, you know. And, you know, even with the temptations, you know, it says he'll also make a way to escape, you know. And what's the main escape that we're going to be able to go through? As long as we stay true to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah, that salvation, that getting beamed up on that chariot is going to be your escape, man. You see? But going into that word, all right, temptation, you know, like it says right here, it could be a mental state. You know, we could get put in a certain way where our mental is broken down heavy, you know, and in the midst of all that, that's why you have the power of prayer, you have the power of fasting, you know, and you have ultimately what? The two names, which are the key of salvation, man. All right, calling on Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah to get us through that moment, you know. It says, of the condition of things or mental state by which we are enticed to sin, or to a lapse from the faith and holiness. Okay. Adversity, affliction, trouble, sent by Yahweh and servant to test or prove one's character, faith, and holiness. You see? Temptation, example, trial of Yahweh by men. You know, sometimes we're tempted by these damn devils out here, man. It says rebellion against Yahweh, by which his power and justice are, as it were, but to proof and challenge, and to but Salakia, as it were, put to proof and challenge to show themselves. You know, that's what we're you know, we're put in these situations to prove Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah that we're worthy. Okay. Strong's definition says putting to proof by experiment of good, experiencing of evil, uh, discipline, provocation. Okay, we have to have discipline in these things. All right, through it all. It hurts, but hey, man, you got to have that discipline. Okay. As a matter of fact, let me read this. This is James 1 and 2. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, you know, because it's to what? It's to try you at the end of the day. All right. It says right here, uh, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience, but let patience have her perfect work, and that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of Yahweh, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, not wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord Yahweh Shai. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Let the brother of the low degree rejoice that he is exalted, in that he is exalted, but the rich in that he is made low, because as the flower of the grass he shall pass away. For the sun is no sooner risen with a burning heat, but it withereth the grass, and the flower thereof falleth, and the grace of the fashion of it perisheth. So also shall the rich man fade away in his ways. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord Yahweh Shai has promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of Yahweh, for Yahweh cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. All right, yeah, because at the end of the day, it's really you could send Satan. Satan could come and mess with your mind. All right. But you go off when you're enticed in your own mind, by not praying, by not fasting on it, by not asking Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai to take that thought away. You see, it says, but every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust has conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. You see, do not err, my beloved brethren. So it is very important, man, that we stay prayed up. You know, let me grab this, and I'll pretty much close it out. You know, this is Give me 1 second. Hold on. There's a bunch of them here. And this is why I just wanted to get this video out, because they not make me feel better than bringing out the word. This is what calms us and soothes us. All right. Uh, this is First Peter 4:19. Wherefore let them, hold on, let me grab it. It says, wherefore let them that suffer according to the will of Yahweh commit the keeping of their souls to him in well doing, as unto a faithful creator. So let me read an NLT. It says, so if you are suffering in a manner that pleases Yahweh, keep on doing what is right, and trust your lives to Yahweh, who created you, and he will never fail you. You see, we're made to suffer, man. This is First Peter 4:16. Yet if any man suffer as a Christian, all right, which the true Christian is you following Yahweh Shai, man. All right. It says, yet if any man suffer as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify Yahweh on his behalf. You see, we can't be ashamed of the things we suffer in, man. All right. We have to keep that and rejoice, and continue to praise Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah through the good and the bad. All right. It says, this is First Peter's, says suffering for doing good. First Peter 3:13. And who is he that will harm you, if ye be followers of that which is good? If ye suffer for righteousness' sake, happy are you, and be not afraid, of their terror, neither be troubled, but sanctify the Lord Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear, having a good conscience, and that whereas they speak evil of you as evildoers, they may be ashamed that falsely accuse your good conversation in Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. For it is better if the will of Yahweh be so that you suffer for well doing than for evil doing. For Yahweh Shai, Hamashiach also has once suffered for sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to Yahweh, being put to death in the flesh, but quickened by the Spirit. You see, which that shows you that Yahweh Shai, when he went on the cross, he had to go for his sins first. You know what I'm saying? Because he did do things. That's how you know reincarnation. You know, he had to pay for what he did, you know, as Solomon, as Adam, you know. So we have to go through certain things because of the things we've done, you know, whether it be in our past life or whether it be in this life, you know, and we're subject to go off, you know, that the Lord has made us subject to go off for a reason, man, because when you do righteously, you appreciate it more, man. You can't learn righteousness and enjoy righteousness unless you have been wicked and gone through wickedness, you know. That's what makes us, you know, want to do better, you know, because we've already been wicked. See, these niggas out here, they just continue to keep doing wickedness and don't care about it, you know. When we go off, it hurts us in our mind because we knew better, you know. But you know, it's very well needed for us. So when righteousness comes upon us, we are able to enjoy and appreciate it, and thank Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai for it. You know what I'm saying? It says, yeah, that's the point on that. Okay. Again, you know, you have to bear the indignation of the Lord because we have sinned before his eyes, man. All right. This is Romans 8. And take it from 12. It says, therefore, brethren, we are debtors, not to the flesh, to live after the flesh. For if we live after the flesh, ye shall die. But if ye through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, ye shall live. For as many as are led by the Spirit of Yahweh, they are the sons of Yahweh. Right? It says, for ye have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but ye have received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of Yahweh. And if children, then heirs, heirs of Yahweh, and joint heirs with Hamashiach, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together. You see, it's a perfect balance, you know. Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai is not a false balance because it's an abomination to him. So it can only mean that suffering here on this side, something at one point is going to be given to us that's righteous, you know. And you're not just going to continue to just keep suffering, not receive, all right, the righteous deed from Yahweh. You know, it has to be a balance. So because they're out here in the world, 2/3 is living, pleasure. What is their end going to be? Suffering. You see, that's why it's almost like we're reversing, you know, the roles. You know, we went from us being wicked to turning back to the Lord, but now we're suffering in righteousness' sake, you know, in order for us to receive that righteous reward. These niggas just wanted to live in pleasure because the word is given to them too. The word is offered unto them. As the scriptures say, this gospel shall be preached throughout the four corners of the earth, and then the end shall come. They have no excuse of saying that they weren't offered righteous living. They don't have They cannot say that they were not given this word to for their salvation, man. Every person in this world is that's an Israelite is going to hear this word, and if you turn it down, you're going to be destroyed later. You know, you might turn it down now, and you might live good, and you might have everything you want on the side, and you might sit here and call yourself blessed. But at the end of the day, you're not blessed, man. All right, because as it tells you in Timothy, let me grab that. First Timothy 6. All right, these people think that everything that they have on this side is a blessing, and is really not. Uh, I'll just take it from 5 straight to the point. It says, the perverse disputings of men of corrupt minds and destitute of the truth, supposing that gain is godliness. These people think that gain is godliness. Having everything on this side is, oh, I'm blessed. Shit, I ain't got to turn back to the Lord. The Lord blessing me now. I got a house. I got children. You know, I got these cars. I got money. You see, they think that gain is godliness, but it says, but from such withdraw thyself. But it says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. You see, having this true word, all right, being content with what you have, the little bit you have, being poor, you know, going through all the sufferings on this side, that's true godliness, you know, and the Lord gonna bless you for that. You see, He's gonna bless you for that. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain that we can carry nothing out. You see, and having food and raiment, let us be there content. Hey man, I'm happy that I got a place to lay my head. I got a little bit of food in my fridge, man, and being able to eat, you know. And by having that, that's all we need on this side, man. And most of all, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. What better can it get? You know, you have this truth, you know. These people don't, and they'll never have it. That's why they're gonna have to walk around with their head down in the kingdom and ashamed, you know, because they chose not to have the love of a Mashiach, man. They chose not to suffer. You know, that's why it's many called and few are chosen, man. Who's really willing to suffer for Yahweh's sake, man? Yahweh suffered for us. See, they didn't know and understand the significance of Yahweh's suffering on that cross, man. But we understand that. So the best we can do is suffer for Yahweh. A tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye, you know, in order for you to receive the prize. You have to suffer for Yahweh on this side, man. All right, which that's the main reason we were put on earth to do, is to suffer, because we went off as a people, and the Lord deal with us as a nation. Just like Esau, you know, when you tell these people, oh, you know, you're going to go into slavery, you're going to go into this and that, you're going to be, you know, destroyed. Oh, that wasn't me. That was my forefathers. Well, the Lord deal with your forefathers as a whole, and He's going to deal with you as a nation, because if you really understand reincarnation, you are your forefathers. You know what I'm saying? So this is why you're going to have to suffer a horrific judgment from Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Right? But going back to Romans 8:18, for I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. All right. It says, yet what we suffer now is nothing compared to the glory He will reveal to us later. You know. Let me grab. This is look, this is 2 Corinthians 1, and Yahweh offers comfort to all. It says, blessed be Yahweh, even the Father of our Lord Yahweh Shah HaMashiach, the Father of mercies and the power of all comfort, who comforteth us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort them which are in any trouble, by the comfort wherewith we ourselves are comforted of Yahweh. For as the sufferings of Hamashiach abound in us, so our consolation also abounded by Hamashiach. And whether we be afflicted, it is for your consolation and salvation. You see, we go through these things because the Lord is choosing you to be part of his kingdom that's to come. You see, which is effectual in the enduring of the same sufferings which we also suffer, or whether we be comforted, it is for your consolation and salvation. You see, and our hope of you is steadfast, knowing that as ye are partakers of the sufferings, so shall ye be also of the consolation. You see, as a matter of fact, that made me think. This is 2 Corinthians 12:10, and it says, I'll grab it from 9. It says, and he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Because when you're the weakest, that's when you have all eyes on Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. At your weakest. That's why the Lord breaks us down the way he does, man. What happened could have been very sure of. It could have been that the Lord trying to get my attention even more, to turn to him even harder. Maybe I wasn't praying enough. Maybe I wasn't fasting enough, and the Lord is drawing our attention toward him even more. It says, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Hamashiach may rest upon me. Therefore, I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecution, in distresses, for Hamashiach's sake. For when I am weak, then am I strong. You see, because we count everything on this side dung. All right, we're meant to lose everything to gain the knowledge of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, to gain Yahweh Shai on your side. Okay, this is Philippians 3:8, and it says, I'll take it from 7. It says, but what things were gained to me, those I counted loss for Hamashiach. Yet doubtless, and I count all things but loss for the excellency of the knowledge of Hamashiach, Yahweh Shai, my Lord, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things, and do count them but dung, that I may win Hamashiach, and be found in him, not having mine own righteousness, which is of the law, but that which is through the faith of Hamashiach, the righteousness which is of Yahweh by faith, that I may know him and the power of his resurrection, and the fellowship of his sufferings, made by being made conformable unto his death, if by any means I might attain unto the resurrection of the dead. You see? So, man, this is why you go through what we go through, man, because you have to feel what Yahweh Shai went through. He wants you to feel that same suffering, even though we can't do it the way he suffered, because hey, only the son of Yahweh could do that, But see, you're gonna get an ass whooping and a half down here, man, to feel what it felt like in order to receive something so righteous, And that's why when you do get it and you do go through these sufferings, you have to take it cheerfully, man. Take it cheerfully, because it can only mean that you're gonna have salvation later, man. If it wasn't meant for me to have that, then man, I'd be out there in the fucking world doing some dumb shit, you know. But I'm still here, still enduring, still pushing through it, hurt, beat, battered, lumped up, like if Mike Tyson just hit me with a whole fucking 10 piece, you know. you want to break down and cry so much. I'm not even one to cry, man, and you know that's why I teared earlier, because it's a lot of in my mind right now, and it's just eating me up, you know. And I'm examining myself at the same time, you know, and understanding why it went down, you know, to the best of my ability. And it can only just, you know, mean that salvation is coming, you know, Lord willing. You know, I'm a prisoner of hope like anybody else that's listening to this video, you know, that really believes in Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, you know. So, like I said, therefore I take 2 Corinthians 12:10, therefore I take pleasure in infirmities and reproaches and necessities and persecutions and distress for Hamashiach's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong. You know, let me grab a couple more and I'll close it out. I just want to remain strong. I ask brothers and sisters to pray for me. Ask Yahweh to just keep the strength on me, you know, to endure it. And I'm sure I will. You know, I'm gonna come out stronger than ever. Right. This is did I just read that? Hmm. Yeah, I did. You know what I'm saying? Hmm. This is Hebrews 2:10. It says, "For it became him for whom are all things, and by whom are all things, in bringing many sons unto glory, to make the captain of their salvation perfect through sufferings." You see, going through these sufferings is what makes us perfect. You know, even if you fall 100 times, man, as the scriptures say, all right, you're gonna fall 7 times, man. The just man falleth 7 times, but he get back up, you know. But the wicked fall into mischief. You see, every time you fall and you get back up, hey, that you conquered it, man. You conquered it through Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, and it's made to, and it's to make you stronger and stronger every time, you know. Especially, you know, we're being broken down so much because of what's to come. You're gonna have to have a mindset, a strong mindset to deal with what's about to happen. You know, it could be very well that, you know, little Ezekiel was taken away for that, to make me strong. And when I see death, you know, we're going to see our family members. We're going to see people we knew, you know, drop right in front of us, man, in horrific ways. And we're going to have a strong stomach for that. We're going to have a strong mind for that, you know, because you know, we don't deal with emotion in this truth. We got to be cold-hearted in this truth. But the fact of the matter is, when you get put in certain situations, emotions are going to come out. When Yahushai was about to go on that cross, he asked the Lord 3 times, can he take that cup away from him? That was emotion. That was showing emotion. He didn't want to go through that, you know, but the Lord never answered him. So the Lord was basically telling him, you're going to have to be strong. You're going to have to be strong in this one, you know, and very well he was, you know. So we are partakers in the same suffering, man. You see? This is 1 Peter 1:10. It says, of which salvation the prophets have inquired and searched diligently, who has prophesied of the grace that should come onto you, right? Because this is that comforter, you know. This is why we have to remember everything we've learned in this truth, because that's what's going to come for us in those days, man. To be able to, you know, have, like it says, knowledge and wisdom shall be the stability. That stability is going to be the comforter, the comfort that you have learned to deal with, you know, through Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. It says it says, who prophesied of the grace that should come onto you, searching what or what manner of time the spirit of Hamashiach, which was in them, did signify, when it testified beforehand the sufferings of Hamashiach, and that glory that should follow. You see? Got a couple more. Salakia. Matter of fact, let me do this. This is Second Ezra's. This one just popped up in my head. Second Ezra 14. 14. This is, let me go up one. It says, now therefore set thine house in order and reprove thy people. Comfort such of them as be in trouble, and now renounce corruption. Let go from thee mortal thoughts, cast away the burdens of man, put off now the weak nature, and set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee, and haste thee to flee from these times. You see, that's another reason why, hey, the Lord might have put, me through what I had to go through, because it says, for yet greater evils than those which thou hast seen happen shall be done hereafter. What we're about to enter into, the time we're about to enter into, man, is going to be, see, we already been seeing wickedness happen upon this earth, but that's only a scratch on the surface. So what's about to happen is going to be far greater than what our minds can imagine, and it's going to be such great evil. Remember, the Lord says it's going to be a time that has never been upon the earth, So sometimes the Lord takes us away from that trouble, It might have been very well that he didn't want little Ezekiel to suffer and what was about to happen. He wasn't going to be strong enough for it yet, you know, but Lord willing, his parents are, right? So all I can do is just set aside the thoughts that are most heavy to me. This is a heavy time for me, and all I could do is just cast my burdens upon the Lord, and the Lord's going to sustain me. You know, sustain me in that moment. Okay. It says, "For look how much the world shall be weaker through age, and so much the more shall evils increase upon them that dwell therein. For the time is fled far away, and the leasing is hard at hand. For now hasteth the vision to come, which thou hast seen, you know, and it's right around the corner, man. Hard, harsh, very evil, evil times is right around the corner. Okay. And we're gonna have to be this is why we get broken down, because the Lord is making us a strong stomach for this, man. All right. I think I've hit the spot to the best of my ability. Salaki, if I rambled on, I just had to get it off my mind because it would just keep bothering me in my mind. And the only way I could do that is by preaching the word, bringing out these scriptures. I shit you not, I feel so much better right now. You know, I'm sure I'm still have my little moments, but hey, I'm still here, hoping Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai have mercy upon me, forgive me for my wickedness that I've done, my past life, this life, being in this truth, anything, that has caused them to, bring indignation upon me, and I have to sit here and eat it until the Lord please my cause, you know, at the end of the day. Mm. Yeah, so that's pretty much the point. Oh, sure. This is Acts 9 and 16. For I will show him how great things he must suffer for my name's sake. We all suffering for Yahweh's sake. And that's a beautiful thing, man. Don't suffer out there for wickedness sake, man. You want to suffer for Yahweh's sake. This is First Corinthians 4 and 12. And labor, working with our own hands, being reviled, we bless, being persecuted, we suffer it. This is First Corinthians 12 and 26. And whether one member suffer, all the members suffer with it. Or one member be honored, all the members rejoice with it. See, we're all suffering together in different manners, different ways, man. But it's still for the same reason, which is all for Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Philippians 1 and 29. For unto you it is given in the behalf of Hamashiach, not only to believe on him, but also to suffer for his sake. You see? This is First Thessalonians 3 and 4. For verily, when we were with you, we told you before that we should suffer tribulation, and through much tribulation you shall enter into the kingdom, even as it came to pass, and ye know. Second Thessalonians 1 and 5, which is a manifest token of the righteous judgment of Yahweh, that you may be counted worthy of the kingdom of Yahweh, for which ye also suffer. Second Timothy 1 and 12. For the which cause I suffer these things, nevertheless I am not ashamed, for I know whom I have believed, and am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I have committed unto him against that day. Mhm. First Peter 2 and 20. For what glory is it if when ye be buffeted for your faults, ye shall take it patiently? But if when ye do well and suffer for it, ye take it patiently, this is acceptable with Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. You see? Yeah, that's the point. So I'm gonna leave it with the first one that I originally came with, which was in Micah, and I ended off on that. I do feel better though. Salakia again, if I rambled on, Lord willing, it was edifying to someone that's going through something that, man, is heavy on your mind. Just stay strong and keep pushing. And Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai gonna sustain us at the end of the day. This is Micah 7 and 9. I will bear the indignation of the Lord Yahweh, because I have sinned against him, until he plead my cause and execute judgment for me. He will bring me forth to the light, and I shall behold his righteousness. Right? NLT says, I will be patient as the Lord Yahweh punishes me, for I have sinned against him. But after that, he will take up my case and give me justice for all I have suffered from my enemies. The Lord Yahweh will bring me into the light, and I will see his righteousness. Lord willing, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, have mercy, have Kasad upon me, my family, my household, my wife, and me. He have Kasad upon every single one of y'all that are still pushing in his word and still believing 100% in sincerity and in truth. All right. Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai is definitely with us. So with that being said, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Kol Haloim La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Blessings and salutations for the Salaki. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect that scattered abroad, the Akim and the Akwat that was listening in. Yahweh Ratazah, Lord willing that the lesson was edifying. To the next one, Shalom. Keep fighting the good fight of faith, enduring as good soldiers of Yahushai, because he that endured to the end, the same shall be saved. Shalom. Yahweh Bashem Yahushai Barakatah.